Chikorita's Community Day has come and passed, and a lot of people have been asking, how good is Frenzy Plant Meganium? Well, spoiler alert, it's not that great, but Meganium getting Frenzy Plant suggests that all Grass-type starter Pokemon will very likely, more likely than before, get Frenzy Plant as an exclusive move on their Community Days. With that in mind, Pokemon such as Sceptile have access to Frenzy Plant. Well, in this clip from my live stream Swag Tips, I go over not only Frenzy Plant Sceptile, but Frenzy Plant every single Grass-type starter Pokemon from Gen 1 to Gen 7 in Pokemon Go, with some extra Pokemon sprinkled in, many of which are from Gen 4. So, pretty interesting there. At the end, I even take a look at some Mega Pokemon and Ultra Beasts. So if you want a peek at the reasonable foreseeable future of Pokemon Go, in terms of Grass-type Pokemon, well then check this out. So this is Tier 3 Raid, Vaporeon, Aquatail, and yeah, you can see down here that Frenzy Plant really isn't doing a whole lot for Meganium. Like, it's almost to the level of Solar Beam Venusaur, but that's Solar Beam Venusaur. You know, it's as good as just straight Rayquaza, a neutral DPS right there, and definitely leagues under Frenzy Plant Venusaur itself. So yeah, Frenzy Plant really isn't doing a whole lot for Meganium. Now, one thing that's there's some new faces on this graph you might be unfamiliar with, and I decided to include some fantasy simulations on Leafeon and Tangrowth. So Leafeon is a Gen 4 Grass-type evolution of Eevee, and Tangrowth is a Gen 4 evolution of Tangela. I bet you didn't see that one coming, did you? But yeah, so for Leafeon here, I used Leaf Blade. And then for Tangrowth, I used a combination of Vine Whip and Grass Knot. And Grass Knot and Power Whip have the same exact stats, so it doesn't matter, both the same. These are attacks that they should reasonably learn. Like, if Leafeon doesn't get Leaf Blade, I'll be shocked, because it's like a move that Leafeon's known for. And then for Tangrowth, Grass Knot and Power Whip, those are attacks that I'd expect from Tangrowth, and they're attacks that Tangela currently knows, but Niantic could just give it like Earthquake and Solar Beam and like Stomp or something stupid. So this isn't from true Game Master data. It's just movesets that I expect them to have to give us some reasonable predictions here, right? So yeah, let's forget about Frenzy Plant Meganium and how bad it is. Let's look at how cool Tangrowth is. Yeah, so it's just a pure Grass-type Pokemon, and it has a bulk tankiness level that is on the level of a Alolan Executor. And if you recall, Alolan Executor is Dragon and Grass type, which gives it a double resistance to water. So Tangrowth is like so thick with that defensive stat going on that it's like on the tankiness level of a double resisting Grass type Pokemon. So I think that's pretty impressive looking towards the future. Yeah, the presumable near future, when are we getting Gen 4? Niantic will not let us know. Hey Ryan, Frenzy Plant Sceptile. Oh yeah, we're getting towards that in like just a moment here. Before we got confirmation on Frenzy Plant, we were kind of wondering, like, what could we have gotten with Meganium? Because it could learn Petal Blizzard from the main series games. That could be a new attack. And then the starter type Pokemon also learn the pledges. So there's like Grass Pledge, Fire Pledge, Water Pledge. So if Meganium got like Grass Pledge, then that'd be kind of interesting, because then it's like, well, then the starter type Pokemon might get different moves for each different community day. Maybe in the future there could be some mixing and matching, but that doesn't seem to be the case right now. It seems like Frenzy Plant for Meganium, and Blast Burn for all the other ones, and Hydro Cannon for all the other ones. But yeah, so since today's focus is the Grass types, I decided to run some fantasy simulations on Sceptile with Frenzy Plant, and then I decided, heck it man, why not just do everything? So I did all the Grass-type starter, type Pokemon throughout the generations with Frenzy Plant, and I also threw in a couple extra little sprinkles of future Grass-type Pokemon in the mix, just to make things a little bit more interesting. So going into that. So these are Vaporeon counters once again, same raid, same situation. Yeah, now we got Frenzy Plant everything. So Pokemon that you're probably not too familiar with. We've got the Gen 4 starter Pokemon, Torterra, which is a ground grass type Pokemon. Very tanky. If I recall correctly, it's not too big on the attack side. And because it's part ground, it's taking neutral hits, not resisted hits. So it's not looking too hot as far as the total damage output, which is tankiness, is concerned. If you're new to swag tips, the x-axis is effectively tankiness. Another Pokemon we have, going to the right, we have Decidueye. Decidueye is a grass ghost type Pokemon from Gen 7. Maybe 5 million years before we see Decidueye. Actually a really cool Pokemon. But yeah, so that's what that is. If you go down to the right, a little bit lower here, this weird white looking thing, that's Chestnut. Chestnut is either Gen 5 or 6. I always get Gen 5 and 6 mixed up. Grass fighting, and known for being a more tanky grass type Pokemon. Just below it here is Shaymin, which is a mythical grass type Pokemon from Gen 4, so we might be seeing it soon. And if you shoot right up here, this is Shaymin Sky form. So just like how Deoxys, who hasn't been introduced yet in Pokemon Go, has a bunch of different forms. Same with Giratina, a Gen 4 Pokemon with a bunch of different forms. Skymin here. Shaymin, Sky form, Skymin. Skymin is an alternate form of Shaymin down here. And then below the land form of Shaymin, this, I don't know what that would look like to somebody who doesn't already know what it is. This like goat looking thing is Virizion. Is it Gen 5 or 6? I think it's Gen 5 and 6 always like blurs together for me. I'm sorry, Pokemon friends here. But this is Virizion, another fighting grass type Pokemon. And it's like a legendary bird kind of thing. One of the trios. It's not like super busted stats, but it still has that hashtag legendary status. So that's included here. And all these Pokemon have reasonable move pools if they're not having the Frenzy Plant. So this one is one of the Musketeers, Virizion. So it will for sure get Leaf Blade. If it doesn't get Leaf Blade, I will write John Henke and be like, why? The Shaymins here have Grass Knot, which might be a little bit too much to ask for, but I think Grass Knot's reasonable on them. Yeah, so that's what's going on with those guys. And then, bottom bottom left here, next to Solar Beam Meganium, we have Frenzy Plant Servine. And yeah, Servine, not really expecting too much. The attack stat's pretty dang low, like converted from the main series games. So, yeah, Frenzy Plant really isn't doing it too many favors. I guess if anything, when Servine comes out, Meganium can feel better about itself, no longer being the worst grass-type starter-type Pokemon. Oh yeah, and then next to Frenzy Plant Sceptile here, I included Solar Beam Mewtwo, just because Kevin, Trust the Cones, from the Game Press team, he was looking at potential moves that Mewtwo might learn. If you are aware, Mewtwo, we're getting those special raids soon, and the Solar Beam, wow, Shadow Ball and Hyper Beam are being removed from Mewtwo's move pool. I guess that SB might confuse people thinking it's Shadow Ball. That's not Shadow Ball, that is Solar Beam. But yeah, so this leaves the Mewtwo's that we can obtain from the Mewtwo raids only having 2 different charge attacks. But the status quo, most Pokemon, just about all of them except for Mew and Mewtwo, have 3 charge moves. So we're kind of like deliberating what this new charge move could be if they decide to implement a 3rd one at all. Like, no confirmation on that either way. But Kevin mentioned that Solar Beam could make Mewtwo like the best grass type Pokemon in his opinion. So I was like, heck, I'll just throw in a sim on that anyways. It's not too hard to do that, especially once you get the ball rolling on all these different simulations for the same raid. So yes, this is a Psycho Cut Solar Beam Mewtwo. Just threw it in there for kicks. That it's not actual thing in Pokemon Go yet, ever. Who knows? But yeah, so all them different Pokemon in here. In the reasonable foreseeable future, if Sceptile were to get Frenzy Plant, it would reasonably be the best grass-type DPS, being slightly better than the Frenzy Plant Venusaur. Of course, Frenzy Plant Venusaur is still a bit more tanky, and the difference in DPS isn't that great, at least in this scenario, where it's like, oh man, throw away all your Venusaurs, Sceptile's the new dad. That'd be a little ridiculous. but definitely a boon for Sceptile, and would probably allow it to achieve, certain clears and stuff like that that might be a little bit out of reach with the Venusaur, or maybe make it a little bit more comfortable to get done. Come to think of it, there are two things that I kind of left off of this graph: Mega Pokemon and Ultra Beasts. Well, somewhere down the line, Pokemon gain Mega Evolutions. Certain Pokemon do. Sceptile gets a Mega Evolution, Mega Sceptile, and Venusaur gets a Mega Evolution, Mega Venusaur. Right, so that could change their viability and their rankings in a pretty big way, since it is a huge stat boost for them. The reason why I chose not to include simulations on the Megas is because I don't know how Pokemon Go is going to do Megas, and how Niantic Pokemon Go chooses to implement Mega Evolutions that can really change what their viability is, what their rankings are. I mentioned this in another stream video, one of the two, that in the main series games, the stats of Mega Evolutions are like their base stats, but plus 100, like kind of sprinkled around. And so in Pokemon Go, they might just straight translate the stats from what they are in the main series games, again, which is probably what they're going to do. Or they could do something unique, and if they do something unique, well then my crystal ball is that much more off. Another kind of weird thing with some of the Mega Evolutions is that they have like near legendary kind of like levels of stats, and their CP is like off the charts for some of them. So I feel like, well, are they going to get like a slight nerf then? Are they going to get like a 9% nerf, a 3% nerf, whatever? So I think there's a giant question mark that I want to have cleared on Megas before I really start getting into stuff on Megas, which means we'd basically already have to have Mega Evolutions in Pokemon Go for me to start getting too deep on there. So yeah, that's why I chose not to include Megas, because they're too good. They're too good. They're so good that I think that they're too good to be directly translated. And as far as the Ultra Beasts go, if I recall correctly, the Ultra Beasts aren't that ridiculously powerful. Ultra Beasts are like essentially legendary Pokemon from Gen 7, so way in the deep future. Deep future in another dimension called Ultra Space, basically, when we start to get a little bit too Digimon in Pokemon for a lot of people in the franchise to handle. But there is a Grass-type Ultra Beast called Kartana, and Kartana, translating its stats into Pokemon Go and running simulations on Kartana, its DPS was like off the charts. I think it was like 26 or 27 on this graph, which would be just a huge outlier. But Kartana is pretty max-minned to do like some crazy huge damage. Like its attack stat is like way off the charts. So for the sake of not having this graph look stupid, I chose to keep Kartana off. But you know who did include Megas and Kartana? My boy Bioweapon, when he did a very similar analysis to this like months and months ago. I think like around when Hydro Cannon first came out in Pokemon Go. So I just copied a chart from his article on that. It's called Starter Type Pokemon and Their Exclusive Moves. So this is a DPS TDO chart using the DPS TDO comprehensive spreadsheet from GamePress developed by Bioweapon. And this is a chart that Bioweapon made for his article that I described to you guys, Starter Type Pokemon and Their Exclusive Moves. So in this, he also took a look at, Mega Venusaur, Mega Sceptile, and Kartana. So with Mega Evolutions in the future, when we get them, if we get them, how we get them, I don't know. Which is why I'm not comfortable devoting a lot of time to elaborating on them. But it looks like Mega Sceptile and Mega Venusaur are going to be pretty potent forces. Mega Sceptile is going to go kind of off the rails on DPS, like ridiculously high on DPS. And just to let you guys know that the DPS here is not to scale with the graph I just showed you guys. This is comprehensive, somewhat of in a vacuum kind of DPS going on, where mine was specific to that Vaporeon raid, and super effective damage was involved. So yeah, different numbers here because different kind of graph, essentially. But yeah, so huge spike in DPS. It's like 6 more DPS, which is insane to think about. Venusaur is only getting like an increase of like 3 DPS to its Mega Evolution. But look at that frickin' TDO. So yeah, Mega Venusaur looking like a tank. Probably going to be a tank. And then all the way at the top, Blade in the Air, we have Kartana, the Ultra Beast, Gen 7. When are we going to see this? Probably by the time I have grandkids. But with Leaf Blade, which is an attack that Kartana should get, because its whole thing is like being like an origami sword person, right? So Kartana with the Leaf Blade, looking like top of the chart in terms of DPS. Just a bit higher than Mega Sceptile, so Mega Sceptile still swagging. But the TDO, much higher than Mega Sceptile. A little bit lower than the Mega Venusaur, but with that much more DPS, I think we can live without the tankiness of Mega Venusaur. So, yeah, some deep future, ultra space, by the time our grandkids have grandkids in Pokemon Go type stuff here. But just kind of bringing it all home, covering all the different bases here in case you're curious about Megas and Ultra Beasts and that kind of stuff. That was a clip from my live stream Swag Tips. Swag Tips streams every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time on the Twitch channel Swag Tips. If you like this content and you want to see more like it, well then make sure to subscribe to Swag Tips. And if you have any questions on this content, comment below and let me know what's up. One question I know a lot of people are going to have is about the Blastburn Blaziken. And I already did a light sort of analysis on that. I'll have a link to that in the description just to, so you have it right away.